Surrounded by a pack of level 5 wasteland gray wolves, a young boy desperately runs for his life, crying out for his parents to save him. The fierce monsters quickly close in, cornering the terrified child. With nowhere left to run, he drops to his knees, covering his ears and sobbing as the wolves leap forward to attack. Suddenly, a powerful beam of light pierces through the air, instantly slicing through the monsters and instantly killing them. As blood splatters across the ground, the chaos comes to an end. A calm voice speaks out to the terrified boy, assuring him that everything is okay now. Shaking with tear-filled eyes, the boy looks up to see a cloaked, sword-wielding figure extending a hand toward him, offering to take him back to the safety of the city. It was not until they reached the city gates that the boy learned his savior was Luo Zhenning, the legendary hero of the Destiny Covenant Association. Years later, the young boy, Chen Xi, sits on the stone steps of an academy, having officially awakened as a Shadow Mage. Disappointment weighs heavily on him. Although Shadow Mage is not entirely useless, it is far too ordinary. Nearby students complain that their summoned skeletons were destroyed and ask how long until new ones can be summoned. When told it takes 10 minutes, they panic, knowing they will be wiped out long before then. Chen Xi sighs, well aware of the limitations. Low-level Shadow Mages can only control 2 skeletons at a time, and once destroyed, their summoning skill enters a 10-minute cooldown. Without any offensive skills, the Shadow Mage becomes complete dead weight on the battlefield. Opening his status window, Chen Xi looks at his baseline stats, level 0 with 100 health and mana, and 10 points across strength, intelligence, agility, and constitution. He finds it incredibly frustrating. During his spirit power test, he scored 150 points. Typically, spirit power between 25 and 85 awakens a regular class, 85 to 105 grants a chance at a rare class, and anything above 105 offers a shot at an SSS hidden class. Chen Xi remembers that in his entire class, only one other student exceeded 105 spirit power, Manhwa, known as Heaven's Chosen Daughter, who scored 110. Even though Chen Xi surpassed her score by a full 40 points, he ended up with a basic class. Just then, an announcement echoes across the courtyard, declaring that Zhang Minghua has awakened as a Void Wanderer, an SSS hidden class. The crowd bursts into excitement and envy, whispering about how she will easily get into the Destiny Covenant Association. Some students wonder why she received a hidden class when Chen Xi's spirit power was higher, but they quickly quiet down as Chen Xi walks past. Watching Zhang Minghua stand at the center of the magic circle surrounded by surging energy, Chen Xi realizes the massive gap between their classes. Despite his superior spirit power, she secured an SSS hidden class while he was left with an ordinary one. He worries about disappointing Mr. Luo, who belongs to the Destiny Covenant Association, the top guild in Great Xia, and the only one directly under the nation's authority. The association is set to recruit new members from major academies in 1 month. However, despite their claim of evaluating overall performance, everyone knows they almost exclusively recruit newcomers with rare or hidden classes, leaving regular class holders with virtually no chance. As the crowd continues to praise Zhang Minghua for her beauty, talent, and incredible awakening, Chen Xi quietly walks away through the crowd, weighed down by the reality of his situation. Zhang Minghua turns back briefly, silently watching as Chen Xi leaves the academy courtyard. Chen Xi makes his way back home to the Jiang City's second welfare home. As he walks up the stairs inside, a woman notices his gloomy expression and asks why he looks so down, wondering if he wants to eat. Chen Xi replies that he is fine, skipping dinner and heading straight to his room. Watching him walk away, the woman sighs, worrying that his class awakening today might not have gone well. Closing the bedroom door behind him, Chen Xi collapses onto his bed. He thinks to himself that someone like Zhang Minghua will easily join the Destiny Covenant Association even without leveling up for a month, as class potential is determined at birth. Still, he tries to stay positive, reasoning that an ordinary class is at least better than a trash one. High levels and top-tier equipment could still give him a fighting chance to reach the association and fulfill his promise to Mr. Luo. Suddenly, a glowing blue screen pops up right in front of him, displaying a system update notification at 50%. Shocked, Chen Xi sits up as the progress bar reaches 100%, declaring the update complete. Puzzled that a system can even update, he checks his status interface. At first glance, everything appears unchanged, his stats are still completely average, and his Summon Undead skill still lists a 10-minute cooldown cost for summoning 2 skeletons. But as he swipes through the interface, a new feature catches his eye, a golden trait called Arcane Grace, with a note stating that a new golden trait will unlock every 5 levels. Having never seen a trait UI in any of his 3 years of Academy theory classes, he inspects the effect details closely. To his utter disbelief, the description reveals that all skills now have 0 cooldown. Stunned by the discovery, Chen Xi accidentally shouts out loud, "Skills have no CD?" His sudden outburst reaches the courtyard below, leaving the caretaker outside hanging clothes confused about what he is yelling about. Realizing the massive advantage he just gained, Chen Xi becomes overwhelmed with excitement. Cooldowns are the single most vital factor for magic classes, and gear with cooldown reduction costs an absolute fortune while offering very little benefit. But now every single one of his skills has no cooldown at all. He quickly calculates the possibilities. With his 100 mana pool and each summon costing 10 mana, he can instantly cast his skill 10 times in a row, summoning 20 skeletons in a single moment. Testing out his newly updated power, Chen Xi activates his summoning magic. Glowing magic circles erupt around him, and skeletal soldiers with burning blue eyes break through the floor and surround him in his room. Seeing the army of undead standing at his command, Chen Xi confirms that the trait truly works. He realizes that as long as his mana continues to grow, he can summon endlessly without delay. Envisioning a future where he commands massive skeletal dragon beasts and an unstoppable legion of armored undead warriors, he knows he can build his own massive army. He smirks with renewed confidence, realizing that if his level completely outpaces everyone else's within the month, the Destiny Covenant Association will have no choice but to make an exception for him. Determined not to waste a single second, Chen Xi decides to head straight out to clear the beginner dungeon. As he walks down the stairs, he startles the caretaker, who gasps in horror at the parade of armored skeletons marching right behind him. Ignoring her shock, Chen Xi smiles with determination, resolved to make Mr. Luo proud. Chen Xi stepped into the bustling dungeon lobby, still wearing his level 1 starter set. But as he looked around at the other adventurers gathering in parties, he noticed something odd. Not a single person was heading toward the beginner trial grounds. He quickly realized that everyone else was running dungeons in groups, leaving the solo path completely empty. Before he could even enter the portal, a familiar voice cut through the air. Chen Xi turned to see his ex-girlfriend Chen Lucy, standing with her arm linked around a smug-looking man in armor, Xing Wei, the young master of the Xing conglomerate and his love rival. Xing Wei wasted no time rubbing it in, declaring that he had awakened a rare class while Chen Xi was stuck with a standard one. With a condescending smirk, he told Chen Xi that the gap between them was now too huge, and that Chen Xi should stop clinging to Lucy from now on. He added that his father had already arranged for people to power level him and Lucy, then mockingly reminded Chen Xi that he had his skeletons to keep him company anyway. Chen Xi stood there in silence. In a world where the weak were prey to the strong, awakening a standard class meant being just another face in the crowd. Getting dumped by his ex wasn't surprising. The real problem was that no one dared to team up with him. Xing Wei had made sure of that. Even nearby adventurers whispered about how Xing Wei hated his guts, with one suggesting they invite him to party up, only for the other to immediately shoot it down. So with no other choice, Chen Xi walked alone toward the glowing blue portal and stepped into the beginner dungeon to grind levels by himself. Just as he crossed the threshold, a masked man in a tech-enhanced suit monitored his entry, calmly reporting that Chen Xi had just entered the beginner trial grounds. Inside the dungeon, a system hologram appeared, displaying the rules. The level requirement was below 10, and the monster hint warned that each outer ring increased the monster level by 1. Another prompt explained that entering a monster's attack range would trigger active aggression, and once he stepped out of the safe zone into combat, he could not return. Chen Xi took a step forward, leaving the safety of the starting circle. Immediately, a pack of glow rats emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing a menacing yellow-green. A scan confirmed they were level 1 normal monsters, each worth 10 experience points, with basic attacks and a 3-meter attack range. Most freshly awakened players at level 0 would be doomed if multiple mobs came at once. They had only one skill and no way to control aggro. That's why everyone usually partied up or found a high-level carry. But Chen Xi had a different plan. The glow rats respawned roughly every 8 seconds and patrolled within 3 meters. He carefully observed the aggro threshold at the edge of the safe zone, crossed the line, and they triggered. So he decided to use his summons as a buffer to hold the front line. With a sharp command, Chen Xi shouted, "Summon shadows." Dark, swirling energies erupted around him. A massive staff appeared in his hand, and the ground trembled as purple magic surged. Skeletal warriors clad in armor and wielding blades burst forth from the shadows. The golden text of his trait, Arcane Grace, flared above him, All skills had no cooldown. But as he summoned wave after wave, he glanced at his mana bar and realized it was almost empty. Still, he had managed to summon 40 skeletons in a single go. That was more than enough. The swarm of glow rats charged forward, but Chen Xi's undead army stood ready, 40 armored skeletons forming an impenetrable wall between him and the horde. With his summons holding the line, Chen Xi was finally ready to fight. With his skeletal army in position, Chen Xi extended his staff forward and gave the command. Kill. The armored skeletons surged forward like a tidal wave of bone and steel, crashing into the swarm of glow rats. Blades sliced through the air, cutting down the monsters in brutal, efficient strikes. Blood splattered across the stone floor as each rat fell, and a series of blue system prompts flashed in rapid succession, confirming each kill with 10 experience points. The sheer volume of the slaughter was overwhelming. As the bodies piled up at his feet, another system notification appeared. Chen Xi's level had finally ticked over. He glanced at his status screen, level 0, now at 45% experience, and realized just how fast he was climbing. He tapped the air, and the glowing notification confirmed it. In less than 10 minutes, he had already gone from level 0 to level 1. Solo runs, he noted, gave far more experience than splitting it in a party. A new status window popped up, displaying his updated stats. As a level 1 Shadow Mage, his base attributes were still the same: 100 health, 100 mana, and 10 points across Strength, Intelligence, Agility, and Constitution. But now he had earned 5 free attribute points. Without hesitation, Chen Xi chose his investment. For a caster like him, Intelligence determined spell damage and maximum mana, and mana was exactly what he was lacking. With a quick motion, he allocated all 5 points into Intelligence. He gripped his staff, purple magical energy flaring around his hand. Once his mana pool reached full capacity, it would rise to 250. That amount would let him flood the battlefield with even more summons and maintain absolute control over the fight. With his new stats in place, Chen Xi stepped forward, his skeletal legion marching silently at his side. He moved deeper into the dungeon, the stone floor echoing with the sound of his footsteps. He had reached the second ring. The environment shifted, and new monsters emerged from the darkness. A pack of gray wolves, their eyes burning a fierce red, snarled and bared their fangs. A system scan revealed their details: level 2 normal monsters, worth 20 experience points per kill with basic attacks. The wolves were bigger and faster than the rats, and they wasted no time closing in. But Chen Xi was ready. He raised his staff and shouted once more, "Summon shadows." And a massive skeletal warrior burst out of the shadows, jaw wide open in a silent roar. More skeletons followed, charging past Chen Xi and engaging the gray wolves head-on. The skeletal blades clashed against the wolves' fangs, tearing through them with brutal force. Another wave of blue notifications lit up the air, each kill granting 20 experience points. The gray wolves fell one after another, their bodies crumpling to the ground as Chen Xi's army carved through them without mercy. With his summons controlling the battlefield and his newly boosted mana pool, the second ring proved to be no more of a challenge than the first. Chen Xi was already well on his way to the next level. The massacre continued without pause. As his skeletal army cut through another wave of gray wolves, a brilliant golden pillar of light erupted around Chen Xi. He looked up as another system notification flashed before him. He had leveled up again. His status now read level 2 at 45% experience, with each defeated wolf confirming another 20 experience points. The gray wolves dropped in droves, their bodies falling in heaps as the skeletal legion marched forward without mercy. But the dungeon wasn't done with him yet. As Chen Xi advanced deeper, a massive shadow slithered across the stone floor. Huge blue serpents with glowing green eyes emerged from the darkness, hissing and coiling in front of him. Rattlesnakes, level 3 monsters, worth 30 experience points each. Chen Xi didn't flinch. He raised his staff high, summoning a fresh wave of armored skeletons. They charged forward with terrifying speed, blades flashing as they hacked through the serpentine horde. The snakes lunged with fangs bared, but the skeletons met them head-on. System notifications popped up in rapid succession. 30 experience, then another 30, and another. The rattlesnakes fell as quickly as the wolves had, their bodies dissolving into purple magical flames. Time flew by as Chen Xi and his undead army swept through ring after ring. The dungeon floor became a graveyard of monster corpses, each one bathed in the glow of his summons. 2 hours passed, and then 3. Finally, a time marker appeared on the screen. In just 3.5 hours, Chen Xi had hit level 5. A new status screen appeared, confirming his progress. He tapped the interface to review his rewards. Every 5 levels, a player unlocked a new skill and an entry. A new icon flashed brightly in his status window. Chen Xi opened it, and his eyes went wide. The skill was called Corpse Explosion. The description read, detonate a controlled skeleton, dealing 300% spell damage to all enemy units within a 2-meter radius. But even more shockingly, the cooldown was listed as none, and the cost was none. Chen Xi's jaw dropped. Corpse Explosion didn't cost any mana either. With his new skill unlocked and his army still standing strong, Chen Xi was more than ready to push deeper into the dungeon. Chen Xi stepped confidently into the next area, his massive skeletal legion trailing close behind him like a dark tide. He was eager to put his new skill to the test, and the perfect opportunity was already waiting for him. Ahead, the ground shook with heavy, thudding footsteps. Massive, armored reptilian beasts stomped into view, steelthorn rhino lizards. A scan revealed their terrifying stats. Level 5 elite monsters, heavy armored chargers worth 50 experience points per kill. Their skills were brutal, an ironclad rush that knocked targets back and caused bleed, and a steelthorn recoil that reflected damage back at melee attackers. For any normal solo player, these beasts would be a nightmare. But Chen Xi just smirked. Perfect, he said, gripping his staff. I'll use you guys to test my new skill. He ordered his army forward toward the 5th ring. The skeletons surged ahead in a tight fan formation, holding the line as the rhino lizards let out deafening roars and charged. The collision was explosive. Steel clashed against steel as the heavy beasts crashed into the skeletal wall. But Chen Xi was already in motion. Corpse Explosion, he shouted. The moment a skeleton fell, he triggered the skill. A blinding flash of red light erupted from the fallen warrior. The explosion detonated with devastating force, sending shockwaves ripping through the surrounding rhino lizards. System notifications exploded across the screen. Successfully killed Steelthorn Rhino Lizard. Gained 50 EXP. One after another, piling up as the chain reaction tore through the elite monsters. But Chen Xi didn't stop there. As the smoke cleared, he immediately cast another summon. Shadow Summon. A new skeletal warrior rose from the shadows. Then, without missing a beat, he detonated it too. Corpse Explosion. Another massive blast rocked the battlefield, wiping out the survivors. In the midst of the carnage, another notification chimed. He had unlocked a new entry. Chen Xi swiped the interface open and read its effect, Spirit Bond Guard. It was a passive ability that transferred 100% of all damage the player received directly to their summons. Chen Xi's eyes widened as he processed the implications. Basically, as long as he had a summon standing, any hit meant for him would be absorbed by his skeletons. He could swap himself out endlessly. And with no cooldowns on his skills, he could keep summoning non-stop. That was basically immortality. A straggling rhino lizard survived the blast and charged him from the side. Chen Xi didn't even turn around. As the beast lunged, a notification flashed, entry, Spirit Bond Guard, triggered. The lizard's massive claws should have torn through him, but instead, a nearby skeleton instantly took the full force of the blow, shattering into pieces. The lizard collided with another skeleton and crumpled to the ground with a heavy, echoing thud. Chen Xi looked back calmly, noting the few remaining stragglers. His army was still intact, his mana was flowing, and his defenses were impenetrable. With an immortal barrier of undead shields and a zero-cost AoE nuke, he was ready to tear through the rest of the dungeon without a single scratch. With a single command, Chen Xi pointed forward and shouted, "Kill." The skeletal warriors surged toward the last remaining Steelthorn Rhino Lizard. A skeleton leaped into the air, blade flashing, and brought its weapon down in a devastating arc. The lizard let out a final, agonized roar as the strike connected, and a bright system notification confirmed the kill, another 50 experience points. One by one, the massive beasts fell, their armored bodies crashing to the ground in a series of violent explosions. The dungeon floor fell silent. Chen Xi walked through the carnage, stepping over the fallen monsters as he made his way toward the exit. After hours of non-stop grinding, his stomach growled loudly. "I'm starving," he muttered to himself. He had been grinding since early morning, and now it was time to head out and grab some breakfast from a street stall. He stepped through the glowing blue portal, leaving the trial grounds behind. The moment he emerged into the dungeon lobby, he was met with the usual buzz of crowded hallways. But as he walked past the bustling groups, a familiar figure watched him from the shadows, the masked man in the tech-enhanced suit who had monitored his entry. The man locked his eyes on Chen Xi's back, and without a second hesitation, he activated a scanning ability. Insight. The masked man whispered. A digital reticle appeared, locking onto Chen Xi, and a single readout flashed across his display, level 5. The man's eyes widened in disbelief. A cold drop of sweat trickled down his temple. He clenched his fist tightly, still processing what he had just seen. Raising his wrist, he activated a holographic communication screen. A woman's face appeared on the other end. The masked man spoke quickly, his voice laced with shock. Miss Chen, she just exited the trial grounds. He paused, then delivered the news that had thrown him off balance. He's level 5 already. On the other side of the call, the woman's expression shifted to pure astonishment. Meanwhile, inside the grand traditional estate of Jiang Minghui's home, a tense conversation was unfolding in the study. Jiang Minghui sat in a wooden chair with a book in her hands, her expression growing annoyed as she watched her father pace restlessly in front of her. "Dad, stop pacing in front of me," she said, snapping the book shut. "You're making me dizzy." Her father stopped and turned to face her, his tone urgent. "We can hide my class info later if we have to," he said. "Right now, the priority is leveling up." But Jiang Minghui remained calm, almost bored. "What's the rush?" she replied with a dismissive wave. "I've got a hidden class. Getting into the Destiny Contract Guild is basically guaranteed." Her father slammed his hand on the table, his frustration boiling over. "I'm the one in charge of recruiting for Destiny Contract Guild at Tunyuan Academy, your old man." He shot back. "If your level falls behind everyone else's, where am I supposed to put my face?" Jiang Minghui let out a long sigh, finally giving in. "Fine, fine," she muttered, closing her book. "I'll grab a bite, then head out to grind in the wild." She stood up and walked toward the door, but as she reached the doorway, her wrist communicator buzzed. The masked operative's voice came through loud and clear. "Miss Chen, she just exited the trial grounds. He's already level 5. The news hit her like a thunderbolt." Jiang Minghui froze mid-step. Behind her, her father called out, "Why are you spacing out? Go eat, then get to grinding." But Jiang Minghui wasn't paying attention to his nagging anymore. Her mind was racing. She knew Chen Xi had awoken as a regular Shadow Mage with a 150 mental power, something she had always found suspicious. But what really threw her off was the sheer speed. He's already level 5? And in just 2 hours? She turned around sharply, her eyes narrowing. "Dad, how much do you know about the beginner trial grounds?" Her father frowned, confused. "What are you asking about that for?" She pressed further. "Because the beginner trial grounds are a death trap," she declared. Her father scoffed, crossing his arms. "Sure, the monsters give more EXP, but the efficiency is awful," he explained dismissively. "It's way worse than getting carried outside, and might even be slower than you soloing in the wild. Even with a hidden class, clearing it in under 10 hours is pushing it." "You think that place is some kind of amusement park?" Jiang Minghui shook her head, a sense of dread creeping in. "But Chen Xi did it," she said softly. "And in just 2 hours." She paused, then voiced the question burning in her mind. What if he really is a Shadow Mage? Her father snorted in disbelief. "Shadow Mages start with just 2 little skeletons," he said, holding up 2 fingers. 10-minute cooldown. Once the skeletons drop, you're just standing there getting smacked. Leveling like that? Keep dreaming. You are not allowed to touch the beginner trial grounds. That is not up for discussion." Jiang Minghui turned away, but a flicker of curiosity remained in her eyes. Her father, trying to shift the topic, rubbed his chin and asked, "All right, Manhwa, among this batch of awakenings aside from you, is there anyone else promising?" Jiang Minghui paused, her hand on the doorframe. "There actually is one," she said. Her father's eyes sharpened. "Who?" he demanded. But Jiang Minghui just smiled and waved her hand. "Since you're banning me from the trial grounds, I'll keep it to myself for now." Her father groaned, throwing his hands up. "I'm doing this for your own good. Besides you, there are only 5 rare classes this time." I just want to know how those 5 turned out. Zhao Menghuai shrugged nonchalantly. Those 5? Don't know them. Don't care. She opened the door, stepping out with a cheerful wave. I'm heading out, bye. Left alone in the study, her father slumped in defeat, muttering under his breath, that brat. I must owe her from a past life. Once outside, Zhang Menghuai walked down the estate's corridor, a serious look replacing her casual demeanor. She lifted her communicator and issued a direct order to the masked operative. Keep tailing Chen Xi. Report his movements to me at all times. She paused, checking a location update, and added, Chen Xi is currently at the Xingtian Grand Restaurant. Down in Skywing City, on the outer street of the Central Plaza, Chen Xi had already made his way to a bustling food stall. Chen Xi walked up to the towering Xingtian Grand Restaurant, Skywing City's most luxurious establishment. A caption explained that rumor had it all the chefs that were top-tier life class masters, with a head chef on the top floor boasting a hidden life class called Elemental Magic Chef, whose dishes could actually boost a person's attributes. But as Chen Xi looked up at the extravagant building, he shook his head. With prices like that, it was daylight robbery. With how little money he had, he didn't deserve to step inside. He just grabbed some street food, then hit another dungeon. As he turned to leave, however, a familiar face blocked his path, none other than the arrogant young Master Lu, the very same guy who had mocked him earlier about not being able to afford a single piece of gear. Lu stood flanked by his party, smirking as he sized Chen Xi up. Well, if it isn't young Master Lu, Chen Xi said dryly, but Lu wasn't interested in pleasantries. What? No more tough talk. Weren't you all high and mighty before? He sneered, gesturing at Chen Xi's worn outfit. 150 mental power, and this is all you've got to show for it? Dressed in full starter gear. You look pathetic. Lu gestured to himself and his party, flaunting their upgraded equipment. Look at us full blue gear, but you can't even afford a single piece. It's only been a little over 2 hours and we're almost level 3. Where are you at? Chen Xi's expression remained flat. He didn't answer the taunt. Instead, he simply said, move. Lu's eyes narrowed, a vein bulging on his forehead. Say that again? But before the tension could escalate any further, a shout rang out from behind the crowd. Break it up. Everyone turned to see Zhang Menghuai striding forward. Without a word, she raised her leg and delivered a powerful kick straight into Lu's chest. The armored young master was sent flying backward, crashing hard onto the cobblestone street with a heavy thud. Lu scrambled up, furious. Who the hell are you? Tired of living. He stopped mid-sentence as he finally got a clear look at his attacker. His rage instantly turned to shock. It's Zhang Menghuai. His demeanor shifted entirely. He scrambled to his feet, brushing off his armor with a nervous laugh. Just a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Miss Zhang. He took a step back, raising his hands defensively. We're not going to stoop to his level. But even as he retreated, he shot a venomous glare at Chen Xi. Chen Xi, don't let me catch you alone. Zhao Menghuai ignored the threat entirely. She turned to Chen Xi with a bright smile, casually offering, want to grab a meal? My treat. Chen Xi glanced at her, and then briefly at Lucy, who had been watching from the sidelines in silence. Same to you, he thought. But out loud, he just replied, thanks for earlier, by the way. Zhang Menghuai waved it off. No need. Behind her, a group of high-level class holders waited. Chen Xi recognized them. They were probably here to power-level Zhang Menghuai. She continued, I was just about to go grind. Want to come? But then she paused, adding, I need to eat something first, recover my strength. Chen Xi's mind drifted to the mechanics of power leveling. If party levels were too far apart, there was an experience penalty. Sometimes you'd get nothing at all. When families power-leveled newbies, the best strategy was to keep the gap within 15 levels. Even then, 4 carriers would still cause a penalty, but the speed usually made up for it. Zhang Menghuai looked at Chen Xi's plain attire and asked, need any gear? Better starter gear makes leveling easier. Chen Xi shook his head politely. Really, I'm fine, but thanks, Jiang. If you're busy, go to your thing. I'm going to eat. He turned and walked away, hands in his pockets, heading toward the street food stalls. Zhang Menghuai watched him go for a moment, then looked back at her waiting party. She still had a dungeon to clear, and a very interesting young man to keep an eye on. After turning down Jiang Mingwai's offer, Chen Xi walked through the bustling streets and made his way straight toward the dungeon lobby. From the shadows, the masked operative who had been tailing him watched with growing confusion. Why is he heading to the party dungeon zone? He wondered. There were only two dungeons below level 10. One was the Frost Cavern at level 5, and the other was the level 10 Hell Pit. But Chen Xi wasn't even close to that yet, so what was he doing there? The masked man followed at a distance as Chen Xi entered the party dungeon zone. The massive hall was filled with glowing blue teleportation circles, each one occupied by groups of heavily armed adventurers preparing to run dungeons together. Chen Xi strode past them all, ignoring the bustling crowds, until he stopped directly in front of an empty summoning circle. Without hesitation, he stepped onto the glowing platform. The moment his feet touched the magic circle, a large, translucent interface materialized in the air before him. It read Ancient War Dungeon. The details flickered across the screen: mode, solo/party, level 1, party size, unlimited, restrictions, none, and most importantly, rewards, generous. Chen Xi studied the options for a moment, then reached out and tapped the screen with his finger. The interface confirmed his selection, and the teleportation circle beneath him flared with brilliant cyan light. As the light engulfed him, his figure began to dissolve into pixels and energy, preparing to transport him into the dungeon. Behind him, the masked operative's eyes went wide with disbelief. He watched as Chen Xi vanished from the platform, and the realization hit him like a freight train. He's going to solo a party dungeon. The man stood frozen, utterly stunned. The moment Chen Xi stepped through the portal, he found himself standing in the middle of a vast, frozen wasteland. Labels and text appeared, confirming his location: Dungeon, Frostmaw Cavern, Interior. Icefield Ravine. A system panel detailed the dungeon's layout. On normal difficulty, Frostmaw Cavern had 150 Frostmaws spread across 3 zones, plus 3 elite Frostmaws and a final boss, the Frostmaw King. Chen Xi stood in the designated safe zone, rubbing his arms against the biting cold. He realized he should have worn a coat before coming in. But despite the freezing temperature, he remained focused. The trial dungeon simply couldn't give him what he needed anymore. Right now, he needed money and gear, and party dungeons, even on normal difficulty, offered far better rewards. He knew this was a party dungeon, but with his unlimited summons, soloing it was entirely within reach. Without hesitation, he stepped off the safe zone and into the snow. He gripped his staff, and with a flash of blue light, he activated his skill. Swirling magical energy erupted around him as skeletal warriors clawed their way up from the frozen ground. In moments, a massive army of armored skeletons was standing at his command, waiting for his orders. The first wave of monsters didn't take long to arrive. From beneath the ice, hordes of frost moles burst forth, their red eyes glowing with hunger. A system scan revealed their traits. These were level 5 common monsters, each worth 70 experience points. Their burrow assault let them submerge and burst out for melee attacks, and their scent perception gave them priority aggression on flesh units. But Chen Xi skeletons weren't flesh, and the system confirmed that their aggro remained stable on the non-flesh summons. The frost moles lunged, but the skeletal vanguard met them head-on. Blades flashed, bones crunched, and the moles fell one after another. System notifications filled the air. Successfully killed Frost Mole. Gained EXP plus 70, over and over again as the undead army carved through the horde with ruthless efficiency. Chen Xi stood safely at the back, watching his army do all the work. He couldn't help but let out a quiet sigh. It was a bit boring, always picking up loot in the back while his summons did the fighting. He glanced around, feeling a little underwhelmed, until a sudden heavy tremor shook the frozen ground. Next up is the elite zone, Chen Xi said. From the icy mist, a massive armored mole burst through the ground, far larger and more menacing than the common ones. A system scan appeared: Elite Ice Mole. Its characteristics were dangerous. Frostbite could slow attack and movement speed, while Ground Slam caused a small area knockback. However, the scan also revealed a critical weakness: low magic resistance, making it highly vulnerable to full AoE magic damage. Chen Xi's eyes narrowed. He pointed forward and commanded his army, close in and surround it. The skeletons surged forward, encircling the elite ice mole from all sides. The beast roared, thrashing and slamming the ground, but the skeletons held their formation. Then Chen Xi gave the final order. Detonate in place. The moment he spoke, the skeletons surrounding the elite mole lit up with an intense red glow. One by one, they detonated in a chain of devastating explosions. Damage numbers flared across the screen, -120, -120, as the blast tore into the elite beast. The explosions piled up, leaving the massive mole engulfed in fire and shockwaves. When the smoke cleared, a system notification appeared. Successfully defeated elite frost mole. Gained EXP plus 300. The beast collapsed to the ground, defeated. Chen Xi stood calmly amidst the carnage, his army already reforming from the shadows, ready to push deeper into the frozen cavern. The elite frost mole crumbled to the ground. As the beast's body dissolved into particles of light, a loot chest materialized, and a second notification popped up, this time with a glowing blue icon. Chen Xi tapped the interface to inspect his prize. The loot was a level 5 frost mole robe, an excellent blue-grade item. Its main attribute provided a massive plus 13 to intelligence, which translated to approximately 150 more max mana. With that boost alone, he could summon over 20 additional skeletons. The robe also came with other defensive stats, making it a significant upgrade. He immediately opened his inventory, selected the robe, and pressed wear equipment. A burst of golden light enveloped him as the frost mole robe materialized over his clothes, wrapping him in a sleek, hooded blue mantle. The new gear fit perfectly, and the power surge was immediate. With his increased mana, Chen Xi calculated that his progression speed was about to accelerate drastically. But the dungeon wasn't finished with him yet. As he pressed deeper into the icy cavern, a new threat emerged from the frost: elite frost weasels. These beasts had low magic resistance, which was exactly what Chen Xi needed. The corpse explosion skill would hit them for full damage, and with their health sitting around 2000 HP, detonating just a dozen out of his 20 summon skeletons would be more than enough to one-shot them. The frost weasels lunged forward with blinding speed, their fangs bared. But Chen Xi didn't flinch. He raised his staff, and his skeletal vanguard intercepted the charge. The undead warriors clashed with the weasels in a blur of steel and fur. Chen Xi stood at the back, watching the brutal exchange unfold as his summons held the line. 20 minutes later, the sounds of combat faded. Chen Xi walked through the blood-stained snow, his footsteps crunching against the frozen ground, until he arrived at a massive ice-covered archway. A label above the entrance read, Boss Area. He stepped inside, and the dungeon boss revealed itself, the Ice Mole Boss. It was a towering, heavily armored mole wearing a crown, its glowing red eyes scanning the cavern. A system panel appeared, detailing its prelude action. The boss was currently raising its head to sniff the air, meaning combat had not yet been triggered. Chen Xi didn't wait. He pointed his staff toward the boss and shouted, "Everyone push forward, lock it down, then explode." A wave of shadows erupted from his staff, and dozens of armored skeletons burst out of the darkness, charging straight at the boss. The Ice Mole King roared, swinging its massive claws, but the skeletons swarmed it from all sides, pinning the beast in place. Then Chen Xi clenched his fist. Detonate. The skeletons surrounding the boss lit up with a violent red glow. One after another, they detonated in a chain of massive explosions. A devastating crimson shockwave tore through the cavern, engulfing the Ice Mole King in fire and concussive force. The blast was so intense that it shattered the surrounding ice, sending shards flying in every direction. When the red light finally faded, a single notification appeared. Successfully killed Frost Mole King. Gained 1000 experience. The boss collapsed, its crown tumbling to the frozen floor. Chen Xi walked forward, tapping the glowing pickup prompt that materialized over the loot. His reward was a purple-gray drop, a set of chilled spine ice-treading greaves, heavy armor boots, and a chilled marrow bone staff. The staff hummed with a cold, cyan glow, clearly a powerful upgrade over his starter weapon. He gripped his new staff, a satisfied smile playing at his lips. First time clearing normal, and I already got a purple drop. Not bad. With better gear in hand and his power growing, he was ready to push the dungeon to its limit. Chen Xi examined the new staff in his hand, a satisfied gleam in his eyes. "This one's a real prize," he said. A system panel popped up, detailing the weapon's incredible value. The bone staff of the cold marrow was a top-tier low-rank magical weapon from the Frosty Mole Cave, with an extremely low drop rate. Its transaction price was estimated at around 8,000 gold coins. The staff provided a massive +30 to intelligence and +300 to max mana, significantly increasing his magic spell strength and the combined output of his necromancy summons and corpse explosion. It was a game changer. With the loot secured, Chen Xi tapped the glowing Leave Dungeon button on his interface. The world around him dissolved into light, and he was transported back to the overworld. Outside the dungeon lobby, at the teleportation array, the masked operative was waiting, but he wasn't expecting what he was about to see. He was leaning against a wall, rubbing his tired eyes, having just waded through what he assumed would be a failed attempt. He had been certain Chen Xi would bail out of the party dungeon halfway through. Then a bright blue pillar of light erupted from the teleportation circle. The masked man spun around, his eyes widening in disbelief. Chen Xi stepped out of the array, fully equipped with his new frost mole robe, the heavy armor greaves, and the glowing bone staff of the cold marrow in his hand. The masked man stared, his mind struggling to process the scene. Only a bit over 20 minutes? He muttered. A level 5 Shadow Mage solo cleared Frostmaw Cavern? He shook his head, refusing to believe it. No way. He must have bailed halfway through. But then his eyes focused on Chen Xi's gear, and his jaw dropped. What? The Frostmarrow robe? The Frostmarrow staff? Cold sweat dripped down the operative's face. He had just witnessed something that should have been impossible. The masked operative stared at Chen Xi as he walked away from the teleportation array, his mind racing. First run in Frostmaw Cavern, and he already dropped the Frostmaw robe and the Frostmaw staff. That only happens if he cleared it. He clenched his fist, realizing why Manhwa had been keeping such a close watch on this kid. No wonder Miss has been keeping him under watch. This guy is broken beyond reason. He quickly tapped his communicator. Miss, but before he could continue, Manhwa's voice cut in from the other side, asking why he was so quiet and if something had happened with Chen Xi again. The operative took a breath and delivered the news. Chen Xi just entered another dungeon. Her voice cracked with disbelief. Again. He confirmed it, adding, last run, Chen Xi solo cleared Frostmaw Cavern in 23 minutes. He came out wearing the Frostmaw robe and holding the Frostmaw staff. On the other side of the call, Manhwa was in the middle of a fight. A massive armored beast lunged at her, but she sidestepped it, her eyes going wide. What? He made it out alive? Solo clear in 23 minutes. She processed the information, her thoughts racing. Just as I thought. With 150 mental power, even a Shadow Mage was never going to be mediocre. Even with a hidden class, it'd be hard to match that kind of efficiency. She glanced down at her own status. I have people power leveling me, and I only just hit level 2. Yet that so-called early-game trash Shadow Mage shot up to level 5 in a single morning. A cold realization settled in her chest. The gap between us is so much wider than I thought. He's still that same genius, standing head and shoulders above everyone else. Her mind spiraled as she tried to piece together his secret. How is he doing this? A level 5 Shadow Mage only has 2 skills, Summon Undead and Corpse Explosion. 2 summon slots, 2 detonations, 10-minute cooldown. That's all he has. So how is he clearing hundreds of regular mobs in Frostmaw Cavern, 3 elites, and the boss, the Frostmaw King, on his own? Her eyes narrowed. Don't tell me he's speed clearing without taking a single hit. A perfect solo run. No damage taken? Is there anything more absurd than this? Back at the dungeon lobby, Chen Xi stepped out of another teleportation circle, his expression completely relaxed. The masked operative watched him, utterly baffled. Is grinding dungeons alone really this much fun? Chen Xi, oblivious to the staring, strolled through the cold cavern with his skeletal army trailing behind him. Honestly, it's pretty relaxing, he said with a light chuckle. I'll wrap up around dinner time and call it a day. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in the warm glow of dusk. Evening, a time marker read as Chen Xi emerged from the dungeon once more, wiping his brow. The masked operative, now permanently stationed nearby, updated his report. He's out. This run, 16-minute clear of Frostmaw Cavern, and he's hit level 8. Mississippi. He paused, then muttered to himself, should he keep going? Looks like that's it for today. As he walked away, the operative called out, get some rest. I'm already nearby. Chen Xi strolled through the streets at sunset, tapping open his inventory interface. The grid was packed with loot, blue-grade items, a purple gauntlet, and more. All of this can be sold at the trading post for gold, he mused. That purple gauntlet is worth a lot, but it's not my type. He swiped through the inventory, then stopped at one specific item, a glowing ancient scroll. So, he pulled it out, unrolling it in the evening light. The real treasure is this. It was a level 10 rift pact. The item's description revealed its function. It could unlock a level 10 rift dungeon. Rift dungeons required a party of 2 to 5 players, but the EXP was plentiful and the gear drops were exceptional. While running 5-player dungeons, there was a small chance of dropping such a rare pact. A single pack scroll could sell for 3 to 400 gold at the trading post, but Chen Xi didn't care about the gold, he cared about the EXP and top-tier drops waiting inside. But there was a problem. The only problem is I need a party member. Who should I ask? As he pondered the question, a familiar voice rang out from behind him. What a coincidence! Chen Xi turned to see Jiang Minghua approaching with a casual wave. She called out again, it really is a coincidence. Chen Xi's eyes flickered with quiet recognition. That young guy who's been staring at me this whole time. He glanced past her toward the shadows where the masked operative lurked. He's clearly from the Jiang family. But he said nothing, just watched as Jiang Minghua closed the distance, clearly eager to talk. Chen Xi held up the glowing scroll, meeting Jiang Minghua's gaze. I heard you soloed a dungeon, he said, pausing before continuing. Got time to run one together? He tapped the scroll for emphasis. If you're interested, we'll pop this tomorrow. We split the rewards 30-70 in my favor. How's that sound? Jiang Minghua's eyes widened as she recognized the item. This is a rift pact? Where did you get this? Chen Xi shrugged casually. Lucky drop. Though the level's on the low side, it's a level 10 dungeon. He tilted his head, offering her the chance. Come with me and we'll run it. If not, I'll find someone else. Huh. Jiang Minghua looked taken aback by the blunt offer. But after a moment, a smile broke across her face. I'm in. Of course I'm in. She replied enthusiastically. Chen, she nodded. Then it settled. See you tomorrow. As she turned and walked off quickly, Chen Xi watched her go, muttering under his breath, running off that fast. The next day arrived, and Chen Xi made his way to the academy. A notification explained that after a job change, students were still required to check in daily for the first month. The academy would correct growth paths and explain dungeon mechanics and party rules. But more importantly, today was the first day the rookie level rankings went live. As Chen Xi walked through the academy gates, the courtyard was buzzing with students, some in gear, some mingling, while a sleek black luxury car pulled up nearby. Inside, Jiang Minghua sat beside her father, Jiang Jingwei. He looked out the window, shaking his head at the excited students. It's the same every year. New class holders get hyped over gear and can't help but show off. He turned to his daughter and asked Minghua, how's your level 5 progress going? Jiang Minghua replied, I grinded all afternoon yesterday. I'm at level 5 over 80%. I'll switch to dungeons today. Hitting level 6 won't be a problem. Her father nodded approvingly. Not bad. That pace should put you first in this year's batch, right? Jiang Minghua's expression turned thoughtful. In her mind, a silhouette of Chen Xi appeared, her father's words echoing as she thought about his true level. Hard to say what rank, but definitely not first. He's already level 8. No way I'm beating that. She changed the subject quickly, stepping out of the car. Dad, I'm running a dungeon with a friend after morning assembly. You don't need to send anyone to escort me today. Hold it, her father called out. I'll be at the school later representing Destiny Contract Guild for recruitment. The rookie rankings go live today, so I'll be checking them too. Jiang Minghua smirked as she walked away, silently thinking, no way my daughter's in first place. You're in for a disappointment, old man. Inside the auditorium, the seats filled with anxious students. Chatter buzzed through the crowd. The rookie rankings just updated. Someone shouted. Others exchanged levels. What level is everyone? On the first day, level 5 is basically the cap. I'm sick of grinding in party hunts. I'm only level 3. I just slept. Level 2 feels pretty good. And one student confidently added, no need to ask Zhang Menghuai's first, right? Hidden classes are busted. Among the crowd, young Master Lu sat with Chen Lucy, arms crossed. Spotting Chen Xi walking down the aisle, he called out mockingly, Chen Xi, what level are you? Chen Xi glanced at him but said nothing, simply passing by. Lucy and I are both level 4, Lu continued, his voice dripping with condescension. You at least hit level 2, right? He grinned, tapping his temple. The rankings are about to go up. Just wait and see. Chen Xi sat down quietly, ignoring the taunts. Lu leaned forward, smugly adding, the rookie rankings only show the top 30. You're not on it, so how would I know? The lights dimmed, and two figures stepped onto the stage. The announcer introduced them, Principal Li Mingtian, and right beside him, Zhang Zhengwei, the Grand Executor of the Destiny Contract Guild, Skywing City Branch. The whispers rippled through the auditorium as students recognized the figures on stage. It really is Zhang Zhengwei. Someone murmured. Menghuai's dad. Another student grinned, leaning back in their seat. Someone's about to steal the show today. Not far from the stage, Xingwei sat with Qin Lucy, his smug expression intact. But a stern voice cut through the chatter. A nearby classmate warned him, Xingwei, the school leaders are all seated. Save your trash talk for later. Xingwei smirked, glancing at Chen Xi across the aisle. At least you know your limits. A hush fell over the hall as Principal Li Mingtian stepped forward, raising a hand. Same as every year, he began, his voice calm but commanding. I'll be leading morning assembly on your first day post-awakening. No class is inherently noble or lowly. This path will be with you for life. He paused, his gaze sweeping the crowd. The rookie rankings open today. But don't let your placement shake your resolve. I know the thing you care about most is the board itself. So I won't keep you in suspense. Let's show the rankings. With a sweeping gesture, a massive screen flickered to life above the stage. The students leaned forward as the list began to populate. Xingwei's grin widened as he caught his own name. See that? I'm 22nd. Lucy's 21st. He turned to Chen Xi, his voice dripping with mockery. From here on out, the gap between us will only grow wider. You'll never be able to lift your head in front of me. Chen Xi didn't answer. His gaze remained fixed on the screen as the numbers climbed higher. The crowd gasped when Jiang Minghuai's portrait appeared at the second-place slot. Her father, Jiang Zhengwei, nearly shot out of his seat, his face a mask of disbelief. Wow, second place. The murmurs spread like wildfire. No way. Jiang Menghua is only second. Then who's first? Why isn't it showing yet? Jiang Zhengwei stared at his daughter, his mind racing. She already knew she wasn't number one. Xing Wei leaned over and sneered at Chen Xi once again, too caught up in his own victory. You didn't even make the top 30. Still stuck at level 1.5, I bet. Principal Li Mingtian held up a hand, calling for quiet. You're probably wondering why first place is taking so long to appear. This year is indeed special. For the first time, we've seen someone reach level 8 in a single day. So we decided to save that name for last. He snapped his fingers, and the screen flickered. The spotlight shifted to a single image. Chen Xi, standing in his familiar white R17 shirt, his expression calm and unreadable. The text beneath it read, Rank 1, Level 8 Shadow Mage Chen Xi. A wave of stunned silence crashed over the entire auditorium. Then the shock broke into a torrent of gasps and cries. Level 8. Shadow Mage. A standard class. Xing Wei's face drained of color. His eyes bulged as he stumbled to his feet, the cool, arrogant smirk replaced by raw disbelief. Hey, level 8. First place. This has to be wrong. He's just a shadow mage. Qin Lucy stared from her seat, her hands clenched tightly in her lap as she watched Chen Xi. Her voice was barely a whisper, laced with bitter regret. Did I bet on the wrong horse? Around them, the hall erupted in chaos. Students demanded answers, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the mysterious shadow mage who had dethroned an SSS class prodigy. Xing Wei stood frozen, refusing to accept what he was seeing. I don't believe this, he hissed through gritted teeth.